Dr. Clendenning, good morning. How are you, man?
Good, the Michael Libercci. How are you this morning, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Navigating some tech issues over here, but we're rocking out. We're doing
We
well.
do what we do. We do what we do.
I know. So today, I want to dive in. I had a lot of feedback on our last episode of the land grab piece, by the way, and I was talking to you about this a little bit earlier before we got on about it turns out I guess Alaska didn't get any money. Alaskans, is that what you call your guys selves? Alaskans didn't
Alaskans,
get
yeah.
any money and didn't get any of that cash, I guess, because of some of the restrictions that were on the oil or whatever it was. Nobody got any money last year, so there was no fights at Best Buy.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that was last year, and so I'll explain that a little bit more. So it's not a guaranteed stipend. It's not like every resident is guaranteed X amount of dollars every single year. It fluctuates depending upon the profitability of the fund. That is what it's for. So when we have federal restrictions that restrict energy creation, pretty clean way to say that. When we have those, right, I could totally tell you what I think about it, but that's energy creation. When we have those federal restrictions, profit's going to go down, right? Your amount of barrels produced is going to go down, and that's not necessarily that's
uh-huh.
not related to the global market. So your price per barrel on oil may be high, but your
Right.
overall production goes way down. Well, you're going to be, your net income is still going to look a certain way. So
Okay.
it depends on the profitability of it. So yes, by and large, Alaska is an energy state, much like Wyoming. Wyoming is a energy. All right, I could go with that. Wyoming is a huge energy state. They're dealing with, you've got coal-fired methane, you've got coal, we've got oil production. You've got they're working on wind, a lot of wind production. Probably one of the biggest states in the definitely the continental United States that is producing wind and the windmills at the level that they are. So I mean they're a huge energy state. So when you get those federal restrictions, it's going to affect the outcome of what those net proceeds are. So if you're part of said fund and there are no profits to be shared, well, it's no different than being on a board of directors, right? If a company you're on for a board of directors doesn't make any money, are you going to make what's 20% of zero? It's still zero, whether you're making that on a profit sheet or not. So that's how that fund
Cool.
works.
Well, that's all. I like that. I mean, that's all part of the bigger plan of what we were talking about in that episode. But you brought up something cool, making money. And I've been running into multiple entrepreneurs lately. I've even had this on some other results. My kids, their study to grade ratio has been coming up lately, and even their work ethic ratio a little bit here and there. It's human to kind of have that, has slipped a little. Average results, right, based on average investment, and the human ROI is not guaranteed in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
But like in studying, you could study for hours and hours, but if you're not getting the retention of the information, the grades show it. If you're in sports and you're going to practice, but on the field it's not translating, the retention, and that's right, what the gap of retention is what I want to talk about today. And I feel like there's a minor erosion in retention based on the ADD, dopamine hit, scroll mentality. And I feel like a lot of people in the entrepreneurial game with AI and with everything else, I feel like that's actually becoming an Achilles heel. And somewhere in the ether, when somebody's trying to improve their personal development, professional development, the glue, that glue of retention and the ability to keep your thoughts somewhat organized and deployed, there's a new gap. There's this new thing. I haven't really heard a whole lot of people talking about it in my research, and I think it's a plague. And it sounds ominous, a plague. It's not a plague, but it's a
I agree with
metaphor.
you. Yes.
It's a metaphorical plague on what we're experiencing with this instant gratification, right? I can write a paper using AI. Granted, there's tools and triggers that are uh, in place to now catch that, but at the same time, my brain goes, I don't even have the bandwidth to think about starting to write a paper. Let me have AI do it, which is fine if AI is editing. So I don't know what in your coaching, if you're starting to experience this, because depending on the sort of the age of the person you coach, and this is not being a discriminative statement,
Mm.
I feel like the older generation right now, outside of getting older, just mechanically, the software is wearing out. I feel like the older generation may have a little bit more of that crisp retention. And some of those, when I say older, probably people in their early 40s, late 30s right now, they haven't gone quite as sort of sucked into the phones uh, globally as the younger generation has. Now, I don't know. What do you think, man? You think we're
No,
on the same
I totally agree with you on that one.
to talk about this?
Sure. Well, I mean, for ratings, it'd be better if I disagreed with you, but I don't. I agree with you on this one. Like, I think you're correct in the assessment that the older generations and then tailing into us and tailing into the 40s and then getting into, I think, into the younger kids, I think that's absolutely true. Now, I don't think what I do disagree with is I don't think this gap is new. I think it is more prominently pronounced now than it's ever been. Like, when you and I were in school, if they would have had ADD as a thing they could have labeled me with, or ADHD, oh yeah, big rubber stamp across the forehead, wonk. I would have 100% had it. Not to the degree that it exists in today's society. I absolutely agree with that. And I think it is because of that instant gratification piece. And when we talk about the retention, I think it's the study habits. My wife and I were talking about this and with a long discussion about how continuing education could be wildly compressed right now. My personal opinion on that is I think you could get an associate's degree in one, a bachelor's in two, a master's in three, and a PhD in five. I really do think that that's very, very possible to do if you do it in an immersion standpoint and you pull out all the extra crap that you don't need to be paying attention to, right? Just focus on, just like if you're getting into a trade, if you're going to be a plumber, you're not learning how to do HVAC. You're not learning how to do electrical. You're not learning how to do framing. You're doing plumbing. That's what you're doing. If you're learning Spanish, go to Mexico, learn Spanish, speak it every day. So it's an immersion piece. So I think that's a little bit of the gap that you're conveying is there's not the immersive thought process into the studying, into the training as there was in the, again, average, quote unquote, average athlete, average student, average anybody. And I think it's very much, I bet you if we did research on graduation rates in high school, I would bet you there's a fairly big gap to support your hypothesis between the honor roll kids are probably crushing it. And then everybody that's graduating is probably just squeaking by. I bet you that middle ether again of students that's like the B's and the high C's, the average kids, I bet you that's way smaller now. And I'll bet you the pile up here is about the same of the grade A kids, but I'll bet you this pile down here of the just getting by generation is, I'll bet it's bigger. I bet it would absolutely support your hypothesis. And I think it's because of distraction. I think it's because the readily available information of all the other crap that they don't need to know, that we don't need to know. I'm not different, right? I'm not picking on high school kids. I'm not picking on older kids. It is easy for me to get into the trap of being distracted. Like super piece of cake for me to do it because of the fact everything is so readily available. I mean, it is, I can go down a YouTube hole. Oh my God. Like in a heartbeat. And I'll look up and I'm like, wow, it's been 2 hours. What happened? Where'd I go?
Right. Well, I think the downside of that, by the way, that is quite the ring you're wearing today. Does that do anything? Does that have some sort of
Oh, that one?
storage?
That's
Yeah.
you actually, yeah, I don't normally wear
Do
a
you
ring
key
every
into
day.
something with that thing? Like, what is
There's
that?
no, you can't. So this is one I actually made. This is a ring that I made. This one's out
Out
of
of what?
Western.
Melted crayons? Like, what is that?
No, this one's out of Western red cedar. Infused, it's epoxy strengthened, and it's actually an elk ivory that's in there. So this is one of
Are
those
you
like
like,
this was
are you rubbing it to try to get the elk to come across your yard or something like that?
a little bit. That may be a thing. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm all about the good juju and the voodoo. It's cool with that. It just shows up because I'm being into the
Yeah,
camera.
I know. I'm like, damn, that's a heck of a ring you got there, buddy. Not, I mean, in a good way, not in a bad way. I just it's
Right.
pronounced. It's pronounced like you usually when you see a ring coming off the bottom of the finger and the top. I mean, that's a statement piece. Not that
And
I
it's
wear
dark. I
any
mean,
jewelry.
that's what really makes it stick out is it's so dark. I mean, you can't miss it against the paleness that is me.
Yeah, maybe you need to relocate to Florida and change your tone there.
More vitamin
Change
D.
your tune and your tone. So as we digress here, we're talking about this and we're talking about this gap, and we go the YouTube route. Also the other problem I see that keeps people back a little bit with this retention piece is the actual doing piece and running in your head the impatience. You try, and I see this sometimes with my kids. Just they're young and naive. You go to implement something, and it doesn't quickly get like gelled into the ether or the nervous system, and it's like, well, why am I doing this? It's like, do you understand healing takes time? Do you understand applying takes time? Adjustments take time. Physicality takes time, and and how difficult something can be, even if it's a super challenge, like rearranging a routine, for example, can be so challenging because it's not native. And even if you're good and the emergency is gone and you've rearranged your routine, that backslide always exists, right? That whole I've been doing it longer than I haven't. You hear certain folks out there who are in the self development world say, "Oh, you could change your life in an instant." Truth is, you can, but can you sustain the change in an instant? So that's the theory, right? So again, when we're looking, let's get a little tactical here. And before we get into tacticalness, I've got two things I want us to sort of talk about that we're bringing to people. The first one is you wrote a new book, and it's pretty cool. I took it from a parenting side versus a business dev book. It's like completely different genre. I don't get anything out of this, people. So support Jake. I'm just doing it out of love. But I really enjoyed reading it. I read through it very quickly. It's an easy read, and it was almost. And this is not by design, people. I'm telling you, it was almost back set in the time where it was more about the experience, more about living your life. And I looked at it from the eyes of a parent, and I looked at it as parental and kid adventures and tying everything together. And I thought it was well written. I thought the life lessons were great. I think if you're out there in the world, you want to have a refresh on what it used to be like to actually experience something. This book's for you. So why don't you tell people where to get this book, Jake? And
It's a
then
nice tie-in, man. Well played with that. So
I'm
it's
a
like
professional, dude. Come on.
I know it. You
I'll let the
totally are.
apps
So
fool
yeah,
you.
it's Days of High Adventure, written by Dr. Jake Clendenning. There's the cover right there. You can get it everywhere you get books. You can get the ebook as well. It's on Amazon. It's on Ingram Spark, Barnes and Noble, whole bunch of other places. It's
What is
getting farmed
Ingram's
out to right
Park?
now. Uh, we are familiar with the term aggregator.
Oh,
Ingram
okay.
Spark is a author aggregation platform. Basically,
Oh,
if you get it on
never even
there, and
heard
they
of it.
farm it out to everywhere.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, so that's what that's
Ingram
about. But yeah,
Spark.
I wrote this. I've been encouraged to write this for a long time. Just these memoirs, and these are all stories that I've been telling forever. I mean, I'll sit around a campfire and tell these stories related to whatever the lesson is that it needs to be learned at the time, or just for fun, just for the heck of it. Because a lot of them are, quite honestly, some of them are wildly unbelievable, and it is. I put semi-fictional on the cover for that reason, and it's up to you to decide what's real and what's not in this. What I can tell you, there's a whole lot more that's real that's not real in this book. There's a lot of stuff that I did as a kid that there's zero chance most parents would even remotely think about letting their kids do.
All
But
right.
look at the lessons that it taught us. Look what it forged. And I have to look back at that now, and I'm just on that journey of, all right, what made me? What made me? What made me focus? What made me level up? What made me what I am? What were the experiences, positive and negative, because they all forged you one way or the other. And so I wrote the book from that perspective. And I encourage everybody to read it from a perspective of, you know what? We are still who we were at 8 years old. We're still that person. We just have a whole pile more knowledge in our head than we did at that point. We can still look at the world through that same curiosity, that same growth perspective of I want to know more. I want to learn more. I'm okay with being inspired by these particular things. And to Mike's point, like you look at this, there wasn't, and I wrote it from that perspective. There weren't cell phones, there weren't video games, there was nothing. You had outside. Like it's this magical place that you go out the front door and you go outside and there's this big yellow ball in the sky that makes you warm. It's an amazing spot. It's cool. There's a lot of different things going on out there. Go outside and enjoy it. Be part of what's going on. And that's where we tie back into this. Well, before I roll back into, because I want to go coaching on what you're talking about. Like we talked about the book, Days of High Adventure. Go get it. Absolutely love it. Connect with us. Total Disruption. www.total-disruption.com. Lots of ways to connect with us on there in different ways. Mike and I have got some masterminds coming up. You can sign up to be a guest on the show, to do some direct coaching with us there. Or if you got something cool, a cool story that you want to throw out there too, man, we want to hear it, because everybody wants to hear it. So we want to talk about that too. So what else did you want to cover before we blaze into coaching?
DM us on socials. We're looking for audience engagement, right? So if you want to get an ecosystem, you want to get your problem solved, you want to get your situation handled, man, we'll do it live, no script, no anything. You'll see the power in action of what we do here at Total Disruption. No gags, nothing. I mean, we'll have a little bit of a working knowledge of it before we start, just for conversation flow, but literally throw it out there and we'll come up with a solution for you. So we'd love to have you on Total Disruption. We want to help you. We want to showcase you and what you've got going on. DM us on the socials. Total Disruption on Facebook. What is it? Total Disruption 1 on Instagram. Total Disruption 1 on Instagram.
Find us on YouTube. Like if you can't find us, you're not trying.
Right. You got to put a little work into that. So, all right. So as we dive into the coaching piece of the application and the quick instant gratification, and you got people out there at a high level and at an upstart level that are hearing what we're saying, it registers in their brain. They want to install a new habit, and the ability, that delta of, man, this isn't working. It's only been 2 weeks. Or, how do you know when to switch? How do you know when it's not working?
Yeah. So I'm gonna quote. This has been said a bunch of times, but I'm gonna quote the most recent one that I've heard say it and try to give credit. I'd love to give credit to the origin, but I don't know that I could. If the why is big enough, the how is easy. I'll say it again. If the why is big enough, the how is easy. So when we're talking about this average results, average success, that means what you want, the thing, it's not big enough. Like it is not big enough that you're willing to throw down whatever you got to do, for be it training or studying or whatever it's got to do to make the thing happen. You're like, if it happens, it happens. And I'm gonna say it. An excuse I hate this excuse, right? Cannot stand it. And I've coached a lot of people, and at one point I was coaching a large Jewish population, and these guys were famous for saying this, and I caught them on it all the time. Is, well, if it's meant to be, it's in God's hands. That is one that drives me up a wall. Let's be honest. Like, it's in your hands. Like, the thing is there. It's available for you to go get it. Whatever it is, it's in your hands. It's within your power. You have all the capabilities in the world to do so. You just have to decide how bad you want it. It's no different. How many times have I referenced running marathons in this show? Every show, probably. Almost. It's the same thing. If you want to win the marathon, you have to train at a certain level. If you want to run the whole marathon, you have to train at that level. If you simply want to finish the marathon, then you can walk that 23 and change, right? You've got to decide what the end result is. Think with the end in mind. I'm throwing all kinds of cliches at you today, but like, that's where I go with this. Is it's got to be big enough and bad enough and audacious enough, and it's got to be scary. It needs to be a little bit of scary, because you need to be uncomfortable, and you got to decide, how bad do I want that? What am I willing to do to get that? And if you're not willing to do the stuff to get that, it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong why. Find the why that drives you. I mean, you look at every professional athlete. At one point, they committed, like any MLB player, any NFL player, NHL, pick your sport, doesn't matter. The rock stars picked at one point, they said, I'm going to be the greatest that ever played the game. And they committed to it. And that's how they played it. Jordan, Brady, Kobe Bryant, take your pick, man. There's tons of them. Every one of them in the same interview will tell you the same thing. I had to choose to do it, and I worked as hard as I had to work to make sure I got it done. So there's my preach from the pulpit
Well,
on that. Is like, how do we make the why big enough that the how is just doesn't matter. I'm going to do it.
well, even radio broadcast legend Howard Stern, he said he doesn't believe there's anybody's any more talented than anybody else. People just work harder at what they're doing.
That's it.
And I like that advice too, and it doesn't necessarily mean though work harder. So I'll set an example. As a fee-based service provider, you could work 10 hours a day. Working harder might mean 12 hours a day, and you could make significant income. So you want to get exponentially ahead at something else. What work harder means doesn't mean add more people in a day because you fulfilled that level of success. It means take your 10 hours a day you're working, and out of the 24 total, right? Out of now the 34 hours you have in a day, figure out how to work harder at the goal, at the why, and figure out how, based on real expectations, what that looks like. So if you're a person that has 24 hours in a day, like everyone else, and you're working 10 of them, let's just say you're physically occupied earning money 10 hours a day, 8 hours of sleep, that's 18 hours, right? Let's say 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep. Doesn't leave a whole lot of room. So in that extra 8 hours there, somewhere flying around, 10 hours, family, food, life, and advancement, right? Travel time, it's advancement, and it's a persistence. It's being real with what the outcome you're trying to have is and what work harder means. Doesn't mean work harder if you're just sitting here grinding 10 to 12 hours a day, like kind of head down, eyes forward. You're going to get better at grinding. You're going to get better at the micro thing that you're grinding on. You're not going to get better at a macro goal. There's not going to be like some hand that reaches out across the ether and says, hey, taps you on the shoulder and says, okay, you're good. I know you, you're my coach, you're my trainer, you're my buddy. Let me put you in a business deal that's going to change your life. Okay. And then magically you're gonna be in this deal that's gonna make you 100 grand, 200 grand, $1 million.
But if it
But you
doesn't
don't know
align
anything
with
about
your
it.
vision, it doesn't align with your why, no, you won't.
But you don't even know what to do. Like you don't know how to even step into that. You're not even
Mhm.
working. You're not even at the point to receive that. And I think that's where a lot of people go a little sideways when they start taking on new adventures or trying to be an entrepreneur or being a little too entrepreneurial, or they're chain jumping. Their current model isn't working. They're susceptible for an injection of some new idea, energy, or presence. And then when it starts becoming the grind on the new thing, time is not managed, energy was not managed, the why is not managed, and then everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So I feel like we've covered in this time together here. I mean, what are we leaving out? What are we missing? What are we missing out for average
I
time?
would so self-evaluation in this. Okay, just a quick self-evaluation. So let's go with learning real fast on this one. Everybody has a learning style, and not one method works for every person. So
Okay.
if, like, for me, even though I write books, reading books, if I have to study material to repeat it for a test, reading the book is not going to get me there. I do not retain that information. I don't. That's just my particular way, because I'm not that way. I retain it a little better on an audiobook. I retain it a little better on an audiobook, and I retain it better if I write it, because that's just my, if I have to take a study method, if I'm failing at one particular thing, it's like, man, I'm just not getting this. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and again, trying to get a different result. You've got to change the way you do it. If it's not working for you, change the way you do it. Still study, still work hard, still work towards getting the thing done, but find a different method. There are plenty of them. If you can't retain 400 pages of a biology book, then take it into bite-sized pieces. All right, I'm only going to study these 2 pages today, and I'm going to rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat until I have those 2. Then I'm going to add 2 more pages. Right? Find a methodology that works for you. Just don't keep bashing your head against the wall trying to do the same thing. Because if you're getting average results from what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to keep getting average results. You need to change the process, not what you're headed towards. You need to change the process slightly. Mike and I talked about this, I think last week. We were talking about building these processes out. You have to modify the process a little bit, just a little bit. Don't change everything. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Change the process a little tiny bit and see if that sticks. If that doesn't help, go back to plan A, change something else a little bit. Don't make dramatic changes, but find what works for you to succeed at a level that you deserve.
Amen to that. Well, we're out of time. So for you guys out there that are trying to tune in next time. Find it social media, E360 TV. I'm the Michael Libercci for Dr. J. Clendenning. Thanks for tuning in. It's your turn to disrupt.